But, I mean, Jesper Bratt, I had an idea that he was going to be relevant sooner rather than later. The Devils drafted him last summer, 2016, in the 6th round, and they gave him an entry-level contract back, I believe it was in April or May. So you don't see that too often. I knew something I didn't know what to make of it, but I knew something was going on there. You don't often see a 6th-round pick a guy get drafted in the 6th round and then sign his NHL deal, 10 months later? That doesn't happen very often. So I think they had a clue that he was ready to make the next step. I kept my eye on that because I found that to be very interesting. You just don't see that very often. He was going to play, and he still might, but he's scheduled to play for one of the best major junior hockey teams in Canada. But of course, he really impressed in training camp. And you talk about a training camp that was full of a bunch of guys who we thought were going to make roster pushes: John Quenneville, Joe Blandisi, and really the most consistent guy amongst those groups fighting for roster spots. And you could even make a case amongst the NHL normal guys like Palmieri, Henrique, Hall, whoever. Bratt was maybe the most impressive of the rookies, and you could argue on some nights he was the best Devil of anyone. Forget the guys just fighting for a roster spot. So I think you have to say Bratt for sure. I don't think anybody saw this coming. Once we saw him in training camp in the preseason, we said, what, maybe he's going to make the team. I don't know if his production will carry over, but he'll probably make the team. But the fact that he came out and he pretty much won them some hockey games early on. We had a goal against Colorado. He pretty much won them the game in Buffalo here in the early going. So I think I have to say him. Butcher, we knew was going to get time, but I don't think anybody saw Bratt not only making the team but producing at the crazy clip he is thus far. It's been very exciting. Anytime you can get a 6th-round pick to help out and a young free agent defenseman who doesn't cost you a lot of money to come in and play as well as he had offensively. I mean, those were two unexpected things, and they're leading the team in points right now. Unbelievable.
It's funny because I'm looking at the NHL website for the names, make sure I don't miss anybody, and Jesper Bratt doesn't even have a graphic.
Yeah,
that's hysterical to me. So
there's guys who they don't update that. Like they'll have guys in wrong jerseys, like Drew Stafford still got a Bruins jersey, or there's other guys who got traded in the offseason. Yeah, he literally doesn't even have like what's the hold up there? Like the Devils obviously have a headshot of him. If you look in their media guide and their program, or on the actually, I guess I'm not sure about the Devils website, but in their media guide or program, I'm sure there's a headshot of him. How has it not made its way 20 miles across the river to the corporate offices over on the east side of the city and the NHL offices? I have no earthly idea, but I guess while everyone's scoring goals and everyone's playing at a fast tempo, the corporate offices are playing a little bit slower for the NHL this far.
So, by the way, my best friend just messaged me, and I told him I was talking to someone in Devil's Daily, and he just pretty much said, ask him his thoughts on Palmieri's overtime goal. He got me some good fantasy points.
But yeah, he got the shootout goal, and he's he got the power play goal early in the game too. I mean, he really kind of signaled the start of the changes for the Devils. When Ray Shero took over, that was one of the first moves he made before he made any draft picks. Right? Was it? He had barely made any draft picks. I think he made their 1st-round pick, and they had traded for Palmieri that draft weekend. So he was one of the first few moves he made. And watch, they got him for a 2nd and a 3rd-round pick, and he scored 25-plus goals the last 2 seasons. That's looking like an absolute steal. Ray Shero, just about every move he's made thus far has been excellent. And yeah, Palms last night, power play goal and a shootout goal. Yeah, fantasy money thus far.
Yeah, I was going to say the funny part about Ray Shero, one of our people on our show was actually a Penguins fan. And when Shero came to New Jersey, he went and said, believe in him. He will lead you to something great, because he obviously was in Pittsburgh for the longest time. And I'm now believing. I understand what Shero can do, because he's be able to find these players and make this team incredible right now, and it's great to see.
I mean, what move has he made that hasn't really panned out? I guess Kyle Quincy last year was his one questionable move. He didn't play that well, and all they did was trade him for essentially a spare part defenseman. But even guys he signed, like Vernon Fiddler and P.A. Parento last year, he didn't get a 1st or a 2nd-round pick, but he got a 4th-round pick for Vern Fiddler, which that's not nothing, so to speak. Gives you more lottery tickets, so to speak, when you get to that NHL draft. So I guess really the only movie he's made thus far that hasn't really worked has been Kyle Quincy. You could pick out their Devils farm system has gotten such rave reviews over the last, more important than anything. It was easily 29th, 30th in the league, and it's probably you get varied rankings around the board. But some people have them as a top 10, top 5 farm system, but most of them even have them at the very worst, middle of the pack. So even that alone he's made. You could see some of his handprints are on the Pittsburgh team. He traded for Brian Dumoulin, who you could argue is the best defenseman after Chris Letang. He's the one who originally brought Connor Sheary into the mix, and what's Connor Sheary doing now? He's playing on a top line with Sidney Crosby. You know who else is in that top line with Sidney Crosby? Jake Gensel, also a Ray Shero draft pick there as well. So while he doesn't have the the guys who are all-stars every year, Ray Shero's fingerprints are on these past 2 Stanley Cup teams for Pittsburgh, and we're hoping some of that pixie dust, whatever you want to call it, is going to get sprinkled all over the Devils here over the next few years.
I have to 100% agree with that. Before I even get to the regular season, because I have everything in front of me, what were your thoughts watching that Ottawa game, the Cratsville Hockeyville game? Because that was insane to watch. I watched that here, and that was crazy.
It's cool. These are the things that need to be happening on American soil as well. It's cool seeing the outdoor games, but seeing it every year, seeing the Blackhawks play every year and the Rangers play, and I know MSG's got a deal, but seeing the Rangers play the Sabres at Citi Field and it being considered a Sabres home game, I think it's just so dumb. Give some of these other opportunities to another team somewhere else. It's too much Pittsburgh, too much Boston, too much Philly, but it was cool to see, Ottawa, New Jersey. And I think it was simulcast on NHL Network, but that's an awesome thing because it brings, it's all about growing the game. I saw a stat the other day, and I apologize for not having the specifics, but someone ran a study about youth sports participation, and everything is down. Basketball is down, and I'm not saying these are huge. I forget what the exact percentages were. Some were down, 2-3%. Some were down like 15%. Football, basketball, baseball. Hockey was up like 18% among youth sports. I don't know what the age groups were. I forget what they were. Hockey's up 18%. I think it was in USA. I don't think it was just North America. I think it was USA. It's up 18%, which says a lot because, as someone who didn't play hockey but have been around a lot of guys, hockey is a very expensive sport to play. The ice time's expensive. The equipment's expensive. Just the fees to get on these teams are expensive. And the fact that the U.S. Hockey is growing in the U.S. in that regard is awesome. And things like this, even more so than the game itself. I mean, the game was awesome because you're playing in this cool little funky rink. But the fact that Craftville does that every year, that, they gave $100,000, $150,000 in upgrades to this rink. I mean, those kids have lifetime memories, and a lot of those kids you saw in the crowd, they were 5, 6, 7 years old. I'm sure some of them, if they aren't already playing hockey, want to get into hockey, and if they already are playing hockey, they probably want to take it even more seriously and say, wow, maybe I can do this one day. I can be an NHL player, and then I'm going to go give back to a rink that needs help, or an area that is looking to grow the game of hockey. I know they're doing it. They're going to China next, or they went to China in the preseason. The Kings played a few preseason games out there, and they said the building was loud and noisy, and the NHL's already tried to help them start up youth programs out there. So it's really cool to see, and that was a lot. I worked a college hockey team. I broadcast the games in Princeton, and it's cool. Anytime a building, 2,000, 3,000 people, if it's filled up and it's this compact rink, and whenever there's great action going on, it gets crazy loud. It's cool to hear loud buildings, small and loud buildings, and I think that Ottawa game was a lot of fun, and I'm glad a lot of people got to see it.
Yeah, they did air it on NHL Network because it was on out here, and I didn't know it was going to be on television. And I was just going to, and they're like, "Oh, they're airing this tomorrow. I'm going to DVR this, and I'll watch it back." I just happened to be able to sit and watch it live, and I got to see like 5 or 6 of the goals. And I'm like, This is so much fun.
It would have been hard to miss a goal, right?
No, it wasn't, especially in the second period. Yeah,
that was a blast. So, and it carried over. So that was really cool. And I went to the Stadium Series game a few years ago, and that was pretty neat to see at Yankee Stadium. But to do it in a like a real hockey environment, a old school rink, it's so much fun. There's so many out here in Jersey. There's so many ice rinks. Watching high school hockey, I would go around and follow my high school team. We would go to the games, and so it's cool to see a small hockey rink. Small little buildings are awesome because any kid playing in the NHL, all at some point played in one of those little buildings, and they know what those buildings mean to them. So I think it makes it even more special.
It's funny you sound like the videos they play for the Winter Classic all the time. They once grew up on the outside ring, and we're playing here. I think it sounds like
truth, though. Nobody played in behind the on this great ice rink behind the Taj Mahal or anything like that. They all went to these little dingy rinks or whatever it is, or even if they're nice rinks, they're little small little buildings run by maybe 7 or 8 people actually work in those offices or something like that. So everyone comes from different backgrounds, but everyone comes from those small little ice rinks in those buildings, and where hockey players are born. It's true. It's corny, but it's true.
It's true. Okay, I want to ask you a question. I'll get back to this in a second, because I remember the conversation we have a lot on our show. Do you think there's too many outdoor games?
It's hard to say. I think yes, but they're well attended and people watch them. So can you have too much of a good thing? So I'm kind of back and forth. Just me as a hockey fan, I don't want to see, whatever it is, 4, 5, 6 of them a year. Once a year, it's cool and it's special. It feels, not that it is the Super Bowl, but if you do it one game on New Year's Eve, it feels like a big game. And, I know I just said before, less Boston, less Philly, all that stuff. But when you do it one time, it feels like a big event. So if you're looking to keep it special and all that, then yeah, maybe one a year is good. But it's tough to argue against it in that regard. Just personal preference, I would say one is good. But these games are well attended, they're well watched, and to some regard, we complain about the NHL not marketing its league or not marketing its stars. If that's the case and that's the way we feel, we can't criticize the other way and be hypocrites and say, oh, but there's too many Stadium Series games. So I can see both sides of the argument. Personal preference, just as a pure hockey fan sitting on my home, hanging on the couch, drinking a beer, just one game is cool. But it does help. If you want to say it's spreading awareness about the game, it does get buzz. So I'm cool either way, if that makes sense. I think that's a cop-out answer, but either way, fine. I'm cool.
It's fine, because I'm a big wrestling fan, and they got WrestleMania. They do the outdoor WrestleMania every year, and I think last year they went to the Alamo Dome for Royal Rumble. And that was it. And that was a big deal, and they make a big deal out of their stadium shows. And I guess in hockey this year, they're only doing 3 outdoor games, and one of them is the anniversary of the league. So that's different, a special occasion. So they understand that, One of them is the anniversary of the league, and then one of them is Winter Classic. And then they're doing a Stadium Series game because they wanted to do it in front of the Navy, for the Navy game in Maryland. So there's 3 special occasions this year. Mm-hmm. So I understand that.
I'm going to the Royal Rumble in Philly. Is Roman winning? What's the deal?
Oh, jeez. I hope not. I refuse to pick him. As I've made it clear, I refuse to pick him. I'm worried that
Vince is going to troll the Philadelphia crowd 3 years after the time he won it in Philly. I think that's what's coming. So fear for your life, but hope for the best, I guess.
Don't say that. I'm hoping they do a swerve. I know we're going to get Roman Brock. I know that's going to happen, but I hope because it's so predictable that you have him win it another way and have someone else win the Rumble.
Yeah,
it's so
it is. Mm-hmm. We're going off a side tangent.
That's fine.
But why not? Because it's your show. You can do whatever the hell you want, right? So I would think, that is, until people speak with their money, they don't really give a damn what the fans want. Like you said, they should do a swerve, but people keep going. They keep spending money on the shows, and, there's no real drop-off there. Why do they give a damn about having it, coming up with something new or interesting? Why not just go to Roman Brock? Until people start speaking with their wallets, they'll just keep doing it. So I don't know. Too bad.
It's funny because I was watching SmackDown on Tuesday with my son, and they announced a possible Jinder Mahal Brock Lesnar match.
Oh God!
Exactly.
Boring.
I literally yelled no at the TV like 10 times. Don't do it. I can't handle that.
I'd rather watch an Arizona Coyotes game than that.
Ooh.
Went there, sorry.
That's all right. You're allowed. Yeah. So let's get back to the Devils, and I'm looking at this. You were at the Devils Rangers game. Explain this situation, because this sounds like so much fun.
It's great. So when we started Devils Daily back in April of 2016, not that we were looking to fill time, but we just brought it up. We can bring up random topics. We're trying to introduce a little bit of everything, and you've got some downtime in the summer. So I just brought up the idea on the air. I said, what if you do a trip to the Garden? And this kind of spurned from an idea of years earlier. There's so many Rangers fans. For people who don't know, tons of Rangers fans come to Devils game because it's whatever. There's a ton of Rangers fans in Jersey.
I've been to
It's
plenty
cheaper
of
to
them.
get tickets, right? It's cheaper to get tickets. Tickets are more available in general, so they come there, and there's just tons of people there, and it gets so tiring listening to them, and they go out of their way to antagonize you. That's the worst part. So I said, why don't we go into their damn building and make some freaking noise? So we did it. We threw it out there, and I'm not a professional group trip outing guy. I don't have, we don't have a website or a portal, and it's easy to get tickets or group tickets. I essentially put it out there on Twitter,